Yeah.
As long as it sends me a copy of its notes, I'm cool with it.
So our topic today is working on the business versus working in the business, and how do we balance the two of them from a TC perspective. So let's start by defining what is working on compared to working in. Who wants to take a shot at it?
Hey, I'll talk about it. I just got my job, this TC job back. So I'm hoping working in the business. Was that Monica? Hi, Monica.
Monica, I'm going to
that was me. Hello, sorry. Okay.
I'm going to mute you just because you have some background noise. So if you want to talk, just unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ray.
Working in the business is when you're trying to figure out how to get somebody to the closing table on time. Anything that's like transaction based or listings based. And then working on the business is when I'm trying to figure out how to set up like the listing action plans in the follow-up bus, or when I'm trying to figure out where our money is going and analyze our budget stuff. Yes?
Yep. Would anybody else add anything to that, or did she nail it?
I think anything relevant in terms of, like Ray was saying, getting people to the closing table is working in it, but also working on is anything revolving growth. And that can be super broad in terms of how your role is structured. Maybe it's growing referrals or reviews or something like that, but I would say that would fall more on working on the business instead of in it.
Yeah.
And I think too, also is just like documenting processes. You know, that was one of the big takeaways that I took from the boot camp, was like documenting, you know, the onboarding process, the offboarding process. Like, so if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, somebody could come in and know how to do your job. You know what I mean? Like, like having it somewhere, like essentially playbooks, right?
Yep. I just had that happen on a team where the listing manager was pregnant and thought she had 3 months left and hadn't documented anything yet. And she's out very early, unexpectedly. Yeah.
Right.
So now the whole team's scrambling to figure out how she was doing her job. Right. Yeah.
That's difficult.
Yeah. So why is it important that we balance the two of them?
Well, obviously you have to like get people to the closing table to make money and stay in business. And you have to work on the business in order to make it better and grow. And to get out of this role again.
Ray, who's back in the role. Yeah.
Future
As of
future
yesterday.
gas.
So I'm still in the like, what's happening, please?
What role are you back in, Ray? I missed the beginning.
TC. I haven't done it in 3 years, and I just got it all back yesterday, and I'm like, oh no. And she had systems, but they're very complex. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I think only she understood how to use her system. So
And
kind
were
of
you
like
the
our
DO
listing
or the-
manager who left.
Yeah.
exactly. She was like, can I have my spreadsheets? And I was like, yeah, girl, you can have them because you're the only one who understands stuff. Here you go.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ray, you're so right. We got to do our job because that's what we are hired to do. And it's important that everybody's involved in growing the business. Yeah. And it's really easy to get caught up in getting business done and kicking the can down the road for growing the business. And then at some point it catches up with us.
Right.
I think for us too, it's easy year after year, especially with our visionaries on teams, to grow your goals, but then not grow your business and then be frustrated that you're not hitting these new lavish goals.
Yeah. And you haven't set yourself up for hitting the new goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are you guys doing to balance the in and the on. And Ray, you can look at it as, what are you thinking you might do to balance the in and the on?
Well, as of like this morning, I just went through and like deleted everything that was on my calendar except for like reoccurring meetings with Rainmaker and coaching. And then I was like, okay, what are the things I need to do that are like task-based that I haven't been doing? Let me put those on my calendar. And then I'll figure out where the holes are that I can work on the business. I'm still looking for those holes. But yeah, that's my
And
plan.
by holes, you mean like available time?
Yeah, big white
Yeah.
space that I'm gonna be like, what do I need to fill in that thing? What project do I need to work on?
Mhm.
I think for me, like identifying any time sensitive gaps that bubble up that you might not be aware of as markets and people transition, but then too, seeing that we're already halfway through the year and July's like half a month away, crazy enough. For me, I think it's time for a reset, or at least for the operations team in terms of like responsibilities, because people are moving. And like for us, I have a new TC starting on Monday. So just making those expectation discussion transitions as well, so that everybody's back on the same page.
Mhm.
Is everybody clear on what their metrics are to grow the business? Or Scott, in your case, is your TC clear on what their metric is to grow the business? Sarah, your future TC, is she going to be clear on what her metric is to grow the business?
That is on
No.
my list.
No, I feel pretty confident saying the answer to that is no.
And I think, Paula, for me, you and I have talked about it a little bit, but seeing that this is my first hire and not somebody else's hire, that's something I want to get super clear on, because I think that I understand it now, but being just the way everything transpired prior, I didn't have a lot of ownership over that. So going forward, yes, that is super important to clarify right up front.
So would it be helpful today to have part of the conversation around what our TC's doing to grow the business?
Yes.
Okay, let's start there. Just throw stuff out.
Referrals and reviews.
Yeah, referrals. That's what I was going to say too. One of the things that they told us at the boot camp thing was being in an admin operations role on a team. This is like the only job where you can decide, like, obviously you have a salary, but then you can decide what you make in the year, right? Because of referrals. They even went so far as to say your goal should be to make as much in referral money as you make in your salary. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. We also have the metric of we have the I don't know if I want to call it a metric or standard or whatever, because nobody's ever hit it, but we would like at least one like sphere referral from each person on the admin team per quarter, in addition to the like referrals from the clients that they're working with, and to add like 20 names to the database every week.
I think from a TC specific viewpoint, making sure that like everybody's fallout ratio might be different, but making sure that all of the closings do actually occur so that we all get paid, and reducing that fallout ratio if need be, and identifying like what consistent patterns coming up as to why closings aren't taking place or dropping out.
I was writing these down and then was like, oh, I should just be typing them in here.
Should ask that AI guy to do it for you.
How do you know it's not
Leverage.
Right?
Everybody's a guy in my book, Paula.
So insensitive.
Yeah. I'm very old school that way.
You can get away with it. I can't.
So Sarah,
What?
with what you just said, how would you rephrase that as a way to grow the business?
Decrease fallout ratio.
By a number, right? That can be measured.
Yes.
Yes, all of these should have numbers attached.
Mhm.
Give you the numbers for added to database and referrals, at least 3 referrals, 1 per quarter, that's 4 a year. And then the number for like transaction based referrals, I think we said 20% to begin with, because like nobody had ever hit literally anything before. Our TC was very much like against the asking for some reason. And then for reviews on 50% of each closed transaction. So that way it was like based on a percentage of it rather than like a number of transactions, because the TC doesn't really determine how many transactions we have. That's more of the agent side. So we try to make it, what does the TC actually have control over?
100%, which Ray, you just brought up a really good point. Whatever metrics we have in our role, we should have complete control over it.
Mhm.
Yes. If it's dependent in any way on somebody else, then it's not part of our, right? Like you can't say decrease fallout rate ratio by 100%,
Right.
right? Because we don't have full control over the fallout rate. Now we may have some control over the fallout rate, so we may make that percentage small just so that we can control what we can control, but you couldn't say 100%.
Right. And just curious, based on your guys' experience for referrals and reviews that are coming in, you're able to tie back that it should be credited to the TC versus somebody else on the team?
The only person on our team who is asking for referrals is either the TC throughout the transaction or the agent like after the close of the transaction. So if it happens through like before close, then it gets attributed to the TC. If it happens after the close and the TC's name is not mentioned in the review, then it gets attributed to the agent. The agent doesn't get bonus on anything. So there's more encouragement for the TC to like go after the review, because there's a dollar amount attached to each review.
Hey, Ashley, you're more the size of Scott's team.
Right.
So when you think about, and you have numerous people asking for the reviews, right? Do you
Mhm.
care who's doing it, or how do you keep track, or what does all of that look like?
I think that when, like, if it's a review, if they mention me by name, then that would be like, check, that's one for Ashley. So, and then obviously, like, if it's a referral, if it comes, from me and I, have someone and say, here, Cass, this person's looking to sell their house, then obviously that would be my referral, that would be credited to me.
Yeah,
We haven't-
the challenge we face is how, because we're sending out review requests from multiple people and multiple channels, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And if they don't mention somebody's name, we have no way of knowing who to tie it back to.
So we haven't gotten
So-
to this stage yet with like the multiple, people interacting with the client other than like the agent and then the TC. But our forward thinking plan is, since the TC and the agent are both responsible for delivering the level of service required to get a review, 5-star or whatever, ideally 5-star, but they have to deliver a certain level of customer client care, and the agent's already making significant like commission on that deal, so they don't get rewarded for a review. But if a client that a TC is working with feel so good about the service provided by the team in general, and they leave a review, whether it's directly generated from a TC ask, it still gets like, they still get bonused on it because they still interact with them on such a consistent basis and deliver that level of client care that we don't care if it came from like one direct ask from one specific person.
I
Mhm.
agree with Ray on that one, right? Because the agent should be asking because it's going to bring them more business, right? That's their whole reason for asking. So if we're delivering the client customer service that's causing them to leave a review, we should get bonused on it, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it was due to our ask or not. Now it incentivizes us to ask because a lot of the agents don't ask. So there is incentivization there to ask.
Mhm.
So in our model where we have, and maybe you guys are structured the same way, where we have transaction management split to where we have a listing coordinator, right? That owns things all the way up through under contract, and then under contract to close is our transaction coordinator, whether it's a listing side or a buy side. So each of them is going to be asking throughout the process for a review. Then we have a separate and distinct client care role that's also asking for reviews. So if we could get a review or multiple reviews that come in from the time a listing is signed up through when it closes. Unless we bonus everybody, we wouldn't know for sure who to bonus unless they mention their name.
Right. Now
Yeah.
you can bonus on listings, like, it's a listing, right, Scott? So you're not going to give your
Right.
listing manager a bonus on buyers because they don't interact with buyers.
True.
Yet on listings, you'd
Yeah.
have 3 people you were paying. On buyers, you would have 2 people you were paying.
Right. And I guess we
And-
could base it on the timing of whether it was under contract when the review came in. You could kind of narrow down. whether
Yeah,
the
if
TC
that
was
listing
involved or not.
manager could get a review before you went under contract, right? Then she would get the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's a great opportunity to ask for, because we had when you go out for a photo shoot, that's a really good, especially if that goes well, it's a really good time to ask for a review from the client.
Now, the other thing to think about too is how much of a tracking nightmare do we create?
That's what I was envisioning. I was like, this sounds very complicated, and we try to keep our stuff as streamlined as possible. Now, I don't know what your review bonus is. Ours is very low. It's $20 per review, regardless of whether or not they just copy and pasted the review from one website to like all of them. Like, it's $20 per review. So if the same review is on 3 different websites, they're going to get $60. But like that client was impressed so much that they like copy and pasted it to 3 different ones. So like, cool, great, whatever. But because it's so low, at that point, just to avoid tracking nightmare, I would probably be bonusing everybody that worked on it because it's so low. It's like pennies on the dollar as far as like what we're bringing in. And if everybody's delivering that level of client care, that's what I'd be like, I'm not tracking that. I'm just going to give everybody money. And then everybody's not going to be like, and yes, there's like the thing about healthy competition and like, oh, did I get them to like leave a review before I went under contract, or did it wait until after? But at the same time, it's like, well, if it keeps coming after and after and after, and then your listing manager's not getting bonus on reviews like ever, I would be afraid of like some kind of resentment happening at some point, depending on what kind of volume you're doing on the listing side. There's lots of ways to do it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong,
No.
right? It's what works for your team.
Mm-hmm.
So other than reviews, referrals, and both client and sphere referrals, adding names to the database, decreasing the fallout ratio, how else do TCs grow the business?
Social media engagement.
Tell me more.
So like I said, we're kind of reconfiguring responsibilities and what have you, but like one of our goals is growing our social media, specifically Facebook and Instagram, 20% additional from where we have it, or just having our Google Analytics increased by a percentage. So just social media engagement. What else do you want me to tell you? So I could go in a bunch of different directions.
And I said,
So-
tell me more
Yeah.
because, right, Ray, Ray, you may not be a good example. You might. Ashley, do you do anything with marketing?
No, not right now.
Okay.
We have a marketing person.
Okay, so that's why I was asking Sarah, is
Yeah.
that part of their job description, or is it like Ashley, right, who has nothing to do with social media? So I just wanted to make that clarification for everybody on the
Right.
call. It's because Sarah's TC's helping in that realm.
In ours, we actually have it where the listing coordinator handles our social media, and they will deal with any of the emails that are coming in, post or just listed, and so forth. I could add to your question of how we could generate the leads or the reviews and such. We can also do it during events. So everyone on our team is going to be present for our events, and we ask that everyone, you know, start a conversation with someone. If they're coming to the table, if it was our pie giveaway for November, then they would come to the booth, and we would ask them right away in a friendly, you know, introduction. Hi, I'm not sure if we've met in person before, or, you know, something down those lines. I haven't met you in person. My name is such and such. We worked on this contract together, if you remember. And then, you know, who you know that you would love to have the same type of experience that you had with us. And then usually they're really, really nice. They're excited because they're getting the pie, and they will usually, you know, refer the person that's with them, which we've already asked in the start of it, to say, hey, bring someone along with you when you're coming. We'd love to meet them, and, you know, we can share a little bit about the experience that you had with us and so forth. And they do.
That's a great one. Call day for our events. Yeah. Sarah just beat all of her agents on their call day. What else?
When anyone's calling to the office, if you recognize them, we're giving them that, you know, wonderful promise type of conversation. And, you know, someone may mention at the time that, oh, you know, I was talking to my neighbor and they were, you know, excited about the fact that I was putting my house up. And then that right there could also be that conversation that if we ask every time that we're, you know, on the phone from that person or another person, then that right there could possibly be a referral that comes from that as well. And also the review. If they haven't done a review, then that will be a chance right there to ask them for that review as well.
Yep. So even people who are not in a transaction with, right, like past clients who might call in for something.
Right.
We don't have the system for this like mapped out yet. This is future planning, Ray, thinking. The TCs interact with co-op agents significantly more than like the agents on our team, and they should be able to recognize talent when they see it. And if, I mean, obviously if they're licensed and with your broker and you're with KW, then you can get profit share with that if you like bring them on to KW. So not only could they possibly grow the team through agent outreach or connections, but also grow the brokerage. So they could help in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They also can develop like vendor relationships that way too, and like create better relationships with vendors, which could hopefully get us larger contributions to events
Or referrals.
and more referrals. Exactly.
100%. The TC interacts with the vendors so much compared to the other people on the team, right? It's, we're often closer to them than anybody is. And even if the agents are ordering stuff, right, they're still not doing it at the level that we're doing it because we have all the transactions under us where the agents have just their transactions. So the relationships with the vendors tend to grow exponentially because of our interaction with them. Great ideas here. So if we go back to the original question, we know what working in the business is. We've identified a bunch of different ways we can work on the business. How do we balance the two? When you see this list, how do we balance this list with our everyday activities?
Time blocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say
Definitely
too.
top.
Just, you definitely have to take time, you know, every week to, and like put it on your calendar. Otherwise you'll just get, you know, all the everyday tasks will just, you'll just blow right through it and not even think about it, you know?
Yeah.
So it has to be dedicated time. And then you have to stick to it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's on your calendar if you're not following your calendar.
Gotta
That's
stick
how I
to it.
lived my life for the last 3 years. I was like, oh, it's fine. Not fine anymore.
Stick to it and being very clear as you're walking into that time block, what you're doing in that time block. You could easily walk into it and take the whole time planning what you're going to do and have no time to do what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. Plan ahead for sure.
I think, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm our team's DOO. So being consistent with check-ins and seeing where people are at and where gaps are and kind of helping from that perspective is really important in terms of working on the business and in the business, because sometimes you don't even know what's going on until you check in with somebody and they're like completely unloading on you and you're like, oh, glad you didn't share that 2 weeks ago and you waited until now.
Yeah.
Yeah, which if you look at from a TC's perspective, right, do they have somebody they're in partnership with? Do they have a 411? Is somebody help holding them accountable to what they want to accomplish? Because we all need that. So here's, as I was thinking about this call and specifically the TC role, one of my takeaways was when we can build the growing the business into our systems and processes, it happens naturally while we're working in the business.
Say more about that, Paula. How do we do that?
So you think about reviews, right? How many of you have already built reviews into your systems and processes?
Yeah, I mean, they're there.
Yeah. The
I don't know
emails
that I love where
automatic,
they're at.
right. The emails automatically go out at this stage, this stage, this stage, right? Asking for it. What we're probably not doing is making the phone calls. And yet if we ended every positive phone call asking for reviews and referrals, it would just be part of our system and process. We wouldn't be making a special call to ask for reviews and referrals. It would just be part of how we ended the call.
Right.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we move some of these other things into our systems and processes so they're just happening naturally? They're part of the way we do business.
Well, I think for events, having a playbook for it or a 57, 36, whatever number you and your team decide, touch marketing plan and leveraging all the technology. Like our team definitely has some really great tools. So letting the technology do the heavy lifting in terms of reminders and notifications and anything that can be automated, letting it be. And for me, the biggest thing a couple years ago was focusing on progress and not perfection, because I am a perfectionist. So doing something or anything is better than nothing, and then making the tweaks from there.
Who else on this call is a perfectionist?
I think we all are.
Yes, I would say all of you are.
Great.
I liked it better when that was considered a positive trait and not something negative.
Right?
It is positive from the operations world, just not in the sales world.
Yeah,
It
I
is-
know, right?
It is positive to a point.
Right. And then it
And then it
stops actual progress.
Yeah.
No
Exactly.
longer positive. Yeah.
Like, I hated doing email blasts to the database because of like the concern of something going wrong. And at this point, you're going to get the bounce backs. You're going to get the people that are upset. And like, it is what it is. It touched the other thousands of people.
Exactly. So then let's look at events for a minute, right? So we're doing our events, and part of our event process is doing an all-day call day to let everybody know, right? That's part of our system and process. And during that event, we're asking for reviews and referrals. It's part of our system and process. We're not making a special separate call. It's just part of our system and process.
And those are the easiest and most fun because it has nothing to do with the transaction. Like, hey, come to this awesome event. It's free, and free is for everybody.
I know Sarah and I are still flabbergasted that the agents resist those calls because they are literally the easiest calls to make. Come have fun with us.
Yeah. They're always like, well, I don't have anything to talk about. I'm like, you're literally inviting somebody that you like to do a cool thing that you also like. What's wrong about that? Why is that? What is the hang up here? I don't understand what's happening. Even like just to call their sphere, I'm like, I don't understand why you don't want to invite your friends to hang out with you and like everything.
Yeah.
So when we look at co-op agents, how can we make that part of our system and process?
It's not part of our system and process now, but future origination procedures, just like we do our check-ins after closing with our sellers and buyers, we should be checking in with our co-brokes too and just like thanking them for a great transaction. In addition to just touching our files regularly each week, even if there's nothing going on, just touching base with our co-broke saying like, hey, everything's still moving along smoothly on our end, even though it's quiet, just letting you know so that there's no surprise 2 weeks from now, or when closing rolls around and we haven't spoken in a month because we've got a lease back or something unusual going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What if part of our system and process was at the end of every transaction, operations sent them a handwritten thank you card that said, thank you for being part of the transaction. If you're ever looking at joining a team, give us a call.
Yes.
Yeah, but only to the good ones, not the ones that you don't want to work with.
Yeah.
Right.
And who better to know than the TC, right? I don't
Yeah.
ever want
Exactly.
that agent on my team, right?
Yeah.
But they still send a thank you card, even
Yes,
if
just not
right?
Yep.
just not the come join us.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I think from the profit share perspective, and our market center has only started rumblings around this, but reaching out to the team lead to have them call the co-broke after you close. So then it's not even on us. We're just alerting them saying like, hey, we closed and it was a good transaction. Can you call them and say thanks on behalf of us? So that's something that is super small, but moving us in the right direction because progress and not perfection. Even though we're not jumping to do the other stuff tomorrow, that's something we can start right away.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge opportunity for us because our market center team lead he's like the recruiting guru, right? That's what he does. So I was just sitting here thinking about this because I've had a couple conversations with our team owner where that's not top of mind for me at the end of a transaction is to
Right.
reflect on that and see whether or not they would be a good ad for our office. So she reminded me of that recently on a transaction I worked on. But that would be a good one for us to build into our checklist, is for the
Yep.
TC to reflect on the transaction and think, are they a candidate for the market center team lead to reach out to? Yeah.
A passive way that I just added it to the end of my signature block that says we're hiring. And if you're a person who, is, excited and basically fits our team, then reach out to me and send, an email to my email address.
Think about that, you guys. She's constantly building her bench. You may not have a position right now, yet if they reach out to you and you have a great talk with them, you keep them in your nurture. And then you don't have to spend 3 months hiring somebody like Sarah.
Thanks, Paula. It's actually longer, if we're being honest.
And actually, I have to give credit. That was actually from both Paula and Kathy, who provided those techniques to add at the bottom of the signature line there. So I appreciate everything. You guys have been so helpful. So thank you.
And we actually get all of our good stuff from all of you. We just repeat it. So clear metrics. So we know how we're winning, right? What do the numbers look like?
Mhm.
And then 2, once we know those metrics, how do we build them into our systems and processes so they just become part of what we do? Now, with that being said, when I was a TC, there was always at least 30 days of the year where I was drowning, and I actually didn't follow all my systems and processes because I had more on my plate than I could do, right? Because of real estate, there's always that time of year when you're busier than any other time of year. And the thing we have to remember is whatever we may let go, like we may let part of our conversation go of asking for reviews and referrals during that time because we can't even have the phone call, right? Everything is email because we don't even have time to make phone calls, is that we're jumping back in once things slow down a little bit and going back to our systems and processes. Now, if we're drowning more than 30 days, we're probably understaffed. Right? But if we're only drowning for a very short period of time, it's the normal wave of real estate. And we're either understaffed or our systems and processes aren't efficient enough. I got to put that in there because, right, if it's not only people, it's systems and tools. So sometimes we need systems and tools to make us more efficient, not another person.
Sure.
I agree.
Paula, can I ask you a quick question?
Mhm.
So going back to one of the ways to grow the business, and was talking about database ads. Is this something that people are actually doing? It's that they're asking their admin staff to be adding X number of people to their database each week?
Jess Garris, and you guys have all seen her on one mastermind or another. That's part of every person on their operations team is obligated to add so many to the database each week. Now, if you ask her how they do that, it's totally from an operations perspective. They're not going out and networking like an agent coming back and adding people to the database. They're doing it through their natural activities. And sometimes it's cleanup, right? Sometimes it's taking one of the agent's phone from them and seeing how many people are in their phone that aren't in the database. It's all done from an operations mindset. It might be events, right? They set up the event so that people can bring their next door neighbor or family member, right? That's how they're adding people to the database. So when they add people to the database, it's from an operations perspective, not from an agent perspective.
Okay, so it's not necessarily because they've added it, it's not necessarily assigned to them.
Correct, correct.
Okay,
And it may
Okay.
be, right? Like maybe I went to this party and I met a whole bunch of new friends and I've added them, right? Then they're going to be assigned to me. That's going to be my SOI. Yet that isn't the gist of what the thought is behind it.
okay, thanks. That's helpful because I was trying to get my head around how you and I've had this conversation about my current role versus when I was a TC, but I think it's applicable as avoiding getting into production, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that one in particular, this just felt like it was on that line, was on the fence as far as getting into production.
Yeah.
Or
And
doing
Ray,
some production related.
I think you were the one that said 20 names to the database, right? How do you expect your team to do that?
Through like events, calling through their sphere, asking for basically like people who they know, like that they would like to be introduced to, not necessarily as like a referral, but like who should I be like talking to? Right, like you kind of like you like your friends for a certain reason, right? Like there's something that like connects you to them, right? Like you can ask them what events they're going to, what kind of fun activities they're doing. And we like try to encourage people on our team to like get out from behind the computer, because it's not my comfort zone to get out from behind my computer. And so I know that like other operations people, we feel very comfortable here at our desk in our little bunkers. And I'm like, listen, that's not the industry that we're in, right? Like, let's go out and let's meet people. Let's be like part of the community that we're like engaging in like all different things. And if everybody on the team is into different things and meeting different people, then so mine was not, I was not thinking about it from an operations standpoint because I don't want it to feel transactional, right? I want it to be more relationships based.
And when you think about it, 20 names to the database in a year is nothing, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, I meet 20 new people in a year, just
Exactly. I was
Right.
like, you're literally doing it in your everyday. Just make sure you put them in the database. Tell
Yeah.
them what you do, right? Because like if they just start getting our information or our emails or whatever, then they're not gonna know where it came from, or they're gonna think that you're just trying to like sell them. But if you talk to them about it, you engage in it. So it's basically kind of encouraging operations people to get out from behind their desks and be more involved in like the real estate industry as a whole, as well as like the community that we live in.
and when you think about it, that's possibly increasing their income.
Yeah. So.
So let's say the 20 a year, so that's what, less than 2 a month.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Is it though?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is because so
It's
I'm talking about
how
myself.
it's how your focus is, right? If you don't realize how many people you meet until somebody gives you a goal of like, hey, come up with 100 people you know, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I know 80. Where do I find that other 20? And then all of a sudden you start paying attention to the people you know that you don't think about that you know, right?
yeah.
It's that same thing. When you say our goal is for you to add 20 names, you just start to become hyper aware of when you meet a new person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also more about like changing. I kind of said it for like myself, but I was like, this makes sense for like everybody on the team in the long run, because when somebody invites me to like a pool party, like my neighbors invited me to a pool party the other day, and I was like, who's going to be there? Do I know them? And there were like a bunch of names, and I was like, I don't know any of these people. And my wife was like, you need to grow your network, you need to grow your sphere. And I was like, you are not wrong about that. So I went and had conversations and met great people, and it was just like a mindset shift, you know? Yes, it's like terrifying and kind of annoying because like sometimes us introverts, I don't know if you guys are on, I should not lump you in with me. I am an introvert and I don't want to hang out with people. And like when I talk to people all day long, dealing with transaction stuff now, it's just like, it's exhausting mentally and emotionally for me. But if I switch the mindset about it and I don't look at it as like, oh, I'm doing this like to grow my network from like a business way, right? But I'm growing my network from like a relationship standpoint, that like that's very different. You could always meet somebody who like could help you with something or know something that you don't know, and you could grow from it. So I just look at it as opportunity. At least that's how I'm telling myself I'm looking at it. I'm still working on the mindset shift. It's coming though.
And that was my point. That's what it created, right? It totally creates us thinking differently about the world.
Yep. Yeah. Makes me less annoyed with people.
It makes her want to actually be in relationship with people and not want to not talk to them.
Yes. Yeah, because I think I kind of like trained my rainmaker to like, oh, she doesn't like dealing with people to the point that it made him more transaction based, like minded in like how we do things. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't like this job. It feels like a super salesy job. And I don't really feel like I'm like interacting with like people, and I don't feel like I'm helping anybody. And I analyzed that and I was like, oh, it's because I told him I didn't want to interact with people. And so now we don't interact with people anymore. And so now I'm making us go back to the office like one day a week so we can like be around other agents and just like get out. I think this came about from the whole COVID, like being locked in my house. And I was like, this is a safe place. I'm gonna stay here. And now I'm like, no, we need people and relationships, and we need to get out of this whole transaction based mindset.
Right, I think you bring up a great point though, because like depending on where people sit, and operations are so often at home, or for me, like I'm not in our general hub anymore. Like we have our own office location, and 9 times out of 10 with my sales team coming and going, it's just me here in this lonely building. So for me, like when we moved out of the office space, it's okay, now I'm going to make an effort to go to the general office meetings, whereas before I sat in that office and didn't go because I was physically present the other times, where now it's like it's so crucial for me to still have recognition within our market center, especially with all these new faces over the past couple of years. I'm like, I have no clue who you are, but you show up, so like cool.
Exactly. Makes you feel more connected, which is the whole point of being in this industry.
In the grand scheme of things, like we're a larger market center and we do a lot of transactions in-house. So it makes it better and smoother on the transaction side when we're doing a deal together, to be like, oh yeah, we've sat next to each other at an office meeting. Like I know who you are a little bit. I know this is going to go smooth like compared to the other 10 offers from like Redfin agents or whatever.
Right.
So what questions did you guys want answered today that we haven't answered yet?
This was a great call.
Mhm.
I'm bummed that my TC starts next week and not this week.
I'll send you the recording, Sarah, and you can let her watch it.
Wonderful. She'll be on the next one.